Good morning. This is Amory Zanzal and Barb Rowlandson. We want to welcome you to our stories. We are telling this because we are having an amazing opportunity for you to get support with your coming out journey at comingoutssupport.net. We are hosting a 5-day workshop for people who are in the process of coming out later in life. And my lovely colleague, Barb Rowlandson, has a bunch of details for you about the housekeeping of watching this video.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Anne-Marie. I just want to let you guys know that, you're free to ask us questions throughout the entire video today. And if you're going to do that, do us a solid. I want you to go over to StreamYard.com/Facebook and register yourself as a user. And that way that when you make a comment, we can actually see who is making the comment so we can respond to you directly. And other than that, just feel free to type in your comments, your questions at any point. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you all. So, Anne-Marie, talking about our stories today, eh?
Oh, boy. We are talking about our stories. And one of the things that happened is that we have a great little Facebook group because, I always curate Facebook groups. And so we have our 5-day event that's coming up. And we have a Facebook group just for those people who've decided to participate in this event. And then I was like, Barb, in the group, we're asking people to share their stories. And Barb and I had to do it. So we said, well, let's just do a Facebook Live. And then I'm like, well, you know what? We could stream this to a couple of the other groups we have and also stream it to YouTube so that everybody can hear our stories because visibility matters.
Absolutely. And it's not too late to join up, right? If you want to be able to, if you're watching this somewhere other than our secret group and you want to join in for starting tomorrow, please go to comingoutssupport.net and fill in the form and register. Our workshop starts tomorrow. It's 5 days. It's an hour each day. And I think, Emery, it's really important we let people know that these sessions are being recorded. So if you don't feel safe watching them while they're being broadcast live this week, if for whatever reason you don't have privacy, they're going to be recorded and available to the people who are registered. So you can watch it from the privacy of your car. You can watch them from the bathroom. You can watch them while the kids are at school so that, nobody needs to know that.
Well, and also too, it's not going to be on Facebook, right? We have moved the actual sessions off into Zoom. So you have to join the workshop so that you can get the Zoom link. It's just because, honestly, it would be easier for Barb and I to stream this live on Facebook, but we know that not everybody that is someone who follows the work that we do is out. And so going on a Facebook Live feels really scary. So please join the group at comingoutssupport.net. Then you'll get all the links. And also that link to the Zoom is also in that Facebook group. So you can at least find it. And so we have about 25 women in there now. We'd love to have some more to join us for this really fun educational workshop. And so that's enough pitching. So let's tell our stories, Barb.
You want rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first?
Well, Barb and I both came out later in life. I was a little older than her. I was in my 50s. I was 52 when I came out. And Barb, how old were you?
I was 45. So that was back in 2017. And I had been married to a man for 21 years, 2 kids. And I know you were married for almost 30, right?
No, I was married for, technically I was married for 27, but I left at about 26 years. Right. And I have 4 kids. So, and both Barb and I were married a long time to men. We both lived in very different lives. We both spent a lot of energy making our communities better. We both had the missing piece. We weren't sure what quite was wrong, but we kept persevering because we had been told our entire lives that you need to work on your marriage and you need to do this and you need to put your husband's career goals first, all those things. Which hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, totally. Because we're good girls.
We are good girls, aren't we? but we were good girls, and we were gonna make it work because that's what we were told to do. And so we really tried. Now this is where our stories diverge. So Barb, talk about your story a little bit first.
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I was married for a really long time, and somewhere in my mid 40s, I had always felt like there was a piece missing, but I didn't quite understand. And I had always considered myself firmly in the heterosexual camp, although a really, really strong ally.
Yes.
And in my mid 40s, much to my astonishment, I fell in love with a woman. And we call that a catalyst relationship in the later in life community. That's when you meet somebody who makes you very rapidly reconsider your sexuality. And I made the decision to, there was a lot of other things that weren't working in my marriage either. So I decided that I was compelled to explore this. And so I decided to leave. And that was the hardest decision I ever made. I walked away from my marital home, had shared custody of my kids, but didn't live with my kids full time for over a year. And that was really hard. My kids were 13 and 16 at the time. And my catalyst relationship was, well, it had all the hallmarks of a catalyst relationship, didn't it? It had the highest.
Name some of the hallmarks of your catalyst relationship.
I certainly can. It was catalyst relationships often have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And the highest of highs looks like, you feeling connected to another person romantically, physically, emotionally, spiritually, in a way you've never felt connected to somebody before. Having your needs met in a way that you've never had them met before. Frankly, the sex was mind-blowing. That's all I'm going to say about that. But, that's what happens when you are actually with somebody who is the correct gender for you in romantic relationship. And so it came with a lot of all of those positives and a lot of personal self-discovery. And it also caused me to look back into my history and go, hey, that time where I spent so much time with that friend, or I really admired that woman. I look back and think there were so many women who I admire her.
I want to be her friend. I want to be like her.
Yeah. I didn't want to be like her. I wanted to have sex with her, basically, is what that was. So, but I didn't. I was really asleep to that, my whole life. So, so those are the highs, and the lowest of lows. Well, it can be quite turbulent. It comes with a ton of grief. Of course, when you meet somebody and you're married, a catalyst in science is when two different elements come together to create a rapid and turbulent change. And so that turbulence that happened after we met, involved with, separating from my husband, having to tell my family, managing and helping my kids through the process because, they were very, very confused. They've only ever knew their mom to be one way. A lot of not being quite in step with my catalyst who had been out since a very young person. So things like, I didn't embrace the word lesbian at first. I wasn't sure if that described me. And that really upset her because we were in a lesbian relationship. And, being proud of who she was something that was very hard won for her. So I think it hurt her that I didn't identify as proudly the same way when really I was just going through a natural process of exploration.
Well, and one of the natural parts of exploration is that we often joke that with the LGBTQIA plus mafia,
yes,
people try on every label before they define one that fits for them. People identify as bisexual, pansexual, lesbian, they identify gay, they
queer,
identify queer, all these different ways. And then for some people, they start to realize it's more about gender for them than sexuality.
Mhm.
Sexuality is talked about a lot more, so people start there often. But for I would say for a lot of us, we consider gender for a while as well.
Mhm. Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I'm married to an out and proud lesbian. My wife has been out for 40 plus years, and she really identified with the word lesbian too. So
Mhm.
that resonates with me, Barb, because
Mhm.
when I was coming out, my kids were like, "Mom, how many times can you say the word lesbian?" Well, honestly, I think it was, I had an aversion to the word lesbian when I came out
Yes.
too. I think it was because of all the baggage that's attached to that word.
Yes.
And then, my wife, I think it was, what is it called? Aversion therapy.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
the word all the time. And so then I was like, then I became comfortable with it. And
For sure.
now I'm a proud lesbian because actually lesbian, the only thing that it means is a woman who loves women.
Yeah,
A woman.
exactly,
That's it.
exactly.
That's
I
it.
know that word has had a lot of negative, attachments, negative things attached to it, through the decades, and I hope the tides are turning for that. I think they have. I think for a lot of us they have, but I remember when you and I were young people, that was an insult on the schoolyard, and now, I understand why it would have such dear meaning to somebody who's been out for a long time because they had to fight for that
Right.
acceptance.
And also too, and also I want you to all to know that it's so normal to have like labels when you come out. People are really surprised often when they come out about how many labels there are in the queer community.
Mhm.
And so sometimes it's pushback against that. So you
Yeah.
were dating this woman. You're on fire, you're falling in love,
Yeah.
you're also navigating all the stuff that comes with it, including leaving a
Mhm.
long-term marriage, kids that are
Mhm.
upset, all that stuff. So what
Yeah.
happens next?
Well, I think forming a new relationship while undoing an old one, is just a terrible recipe. These
Mhm.
ingredients do not go together. And this is why so many, I mean, not all, some catalyst relationships work out, but a great many do not. And it's just stress, right? It's the stress of a lot of turbulent change that happens on a new relationship where, before things are really fully forged and there's really full commitment, and then the catalyst relationship falls apart. And that was the case in my scenario. And when that happened, not only had I unraveled my whole old life, which was a very safe place, um, for all these feelings that I'd been having, but I also lost the person who was the catalyst for all of those
Mhm.
feelings.
Mhm.
And so I really felt like I had burned my life to the ground
Mhm.
in every respect. I also became sick, because stress does that, right?
Mhm.
So I had a ton of gastrointestinal problems. I was going for scopes. I was on medication. Nobody could they knew I was really acidic, but nobody could really figure out why. Well, I mean, I was under probably the most stress that I'd ever been in my entire life. So of course my
Right.
body's going to react that way.
Mhm.
And I went on a sick leave from a job. I also had a lot of turbulent things happen at that job before I left. So I was out of my marital home, couch surfing, no relationship with my catalyst, no job, and sick. So really, my life went from kind of just trucking along status quo
Right.
to completely like nuclear bomb went off
Mhm.
in my
Mhm.
life. And while that is catastrophic, and I don't want to like,
That is, well, first of all, um, that's almost the extreme, right?
yes,
Of what
yes,
you experience. That
yeah,
is, and that's why I think Barb has been through such challenges coming out that has taught us taught like what she brings to my coaching program is her enormous empathy and compassion,
hmm,
because going through something like this makes us incredibly, I mean, if we weren't before, which both of
yeah,
us were, we really really get this. And so
oh, for
Barb
sure,
had a like like just one of the most difficult things as she went out. She came out. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And even if you're, if you're listening to this now and you're someone who's in a catalyst relationship, if you're overcoming the end of a catalyst relationship, believe me, I see you. I know how hard this is. Maybe your story isn't as extreme as mine was, but the feelings are all still there. And it's, really important to talk about too. Like when we come out later in life, it's like we're adolescents, right? Like
Right.
we are full of the hormones.
Yeah,
It's all
absolutely.
happening for us. And I know we joke sometimes it's a second adolescence, but I've heard you say it's actually kind of our first.
Because we didn't have one the first time around.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
times we were just, for some of us, not all of us. Now, like, just so you know that coming out stories are a bell curve. There's people that have
Mhm.
like, there's these people, and then there's these people on the other side. But there is a commonality. So as you work with us, you will understand that there is a commonality to this. And
Mhm.
so, I'm sorry, Barb. Remind me of what you just said.
Just that, if you see a piece of your own story within the story that I'm telling you now, I really see you and understand. I don't want to downplay the hard parts of coming out later in life as a result of a catalyst relationship at all, because they are extremely hard. However, one of the great things, the best thing really about it happening this way is you then get to, on your wobbly little newborn full legs, get to stand up, and then you get to create. You've erased everything, so now you get to rebuild your life your
How you want to.
in your parameters, right?
Yeah,
Like how
not how
you
you were.
want to.
Yeah, not how you were told to be, but
Yes.
how you were born to be.
Hmm.
And what we were talking about was adolescence, and I said that it was like a first, it's actually a first adolescence, because a lot of times we would see some of us, we would see our friends
Hmm.
be really crazy and all that stuff like that, and we just sort of didn't
Yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
but we did it anyway because that's what we were supposed to do. And
Yeah.
so, is there anything else do you want to add to your story, Bob?
Just that, a lot of times it's easy to dwell on the hard and the negative stuff, but I think a really important thing I want us to be able to communicate in our workshop this week is the joy part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, there is, today my life is so different than it was when I was a married person, and it has entirely been crafted to suit me. And when you can step out into your authenticity, when you can live life that is truly aligned with who you are, um, unapologetically, proudly, uh, your needs are met in a way that they've never been met before. And it's such a joyful and wonderful thing to be able to come out later in life. So I want to underline that for everybody.
Right, absolutely. And so, I'll share a little bit about my story. The difference between Barb and I is that, I was always somebody who was vaguely aware that I may not be straight. And so when I read the line for the first time, "Straight girls don't lie awake at night wondering if they're gay," like a light bulb went on off in my
Yeah.
head. Now, that was in part of my coming out journey.
Yeah.
So I am somebody I found attraction to women when I was young. I remember consciously wondering if I was gay when I was like in my mid 20s, but I was also engaged at that point to who became my future husband. And I had like a lot of us, I had quite a chaotic childhood. And
Mhm.
so I really was looking for somebody who could keep me warm and safe and dry. And I found that in my
Yeah.
ex-husband. He
Yeah.
was very good at doing that. And
Mhm.
I really, really, really wanted to have children.
Mhm.
And now I wonder why, but no,
Oh,
they're a
sure.
handful. Children are a handful, as we all know. Anybody who's a mama knows that.
Yeah, they're a
Um,
lot.
but I really wanted a family.
Yeah.
I think I wanted both my ex-husband and I came from chaotic childhoods. We wanted to create a family that we did not have when we were young, and
Yeah.
we succeeded in doing that. And so I'm going to be honest with you, for 10 years, 12 years while I was raising my kids, because I had 3 very close together, like 3 and 5 years. And then I had a bonus baby and he's 8 years younger than his siblings. I didn't think about my sexuality at all. Nothing.
Right. Busy.
I was busy, didn't think about it. And I was about my early 40s when I read an article in Oprah magazine, which talked about the fluidity of women's sexuality. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went off in my head.
Right.
That even though I had started on the straight path, I could get off of it.
Yes. Yes.
And I actually told my 16-year-old daughter, who is now 32, and she has no memory of this conversation at all, which sort of tickles me because first of all, kids don't listen to what their mothers say, but also to her, it wasn't shocking at all because I had raised my children to be quite progressive.
Sure.
And so I said, if something ever happens to Dad and I, don't be surprised if I end up with a woman. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. I didn't even know, but it was said out loud. And I realize now that was the first time I ever said that out loud to anyone. It was my daughter. And it was it was so casual. But I was also doing something very different then. I had gone back to school. I went to Yale Divinity School to get my master's degree in ministry. And I really wanted to work as a chaplain. And so I was doing all that stuff. I had 4 kids between the ages of 2 and 14. I was going to Yale Divinity School full time. And I had a job as a chaplain in a hospital, part-time. I look back at that and say,
how did you do it?
Yeah. How did I do that? I think the universe had a plan for me and they knew that the universe knew that I was going to be doing something like this. So I don't know. I had unnatural strength, whatever. And so I was at actually Yale Divinity School in 2009, I think. And I was such a good ally, just like you, Barb.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna support the queer community. And I went to a coming out day ceremony that they had at Marcon Chapel, and all of a sudden I started crying hysterically.
Yeah.
And I was so embarrassed because I had all that internalized homophobia going on.
Right.
So embarrassed. I left and I was out on the quad and I was like, how am I going to do this? I'm married. I have 4 kids. At that time, I was in the ordination process with an evangelical church. I mean, it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
And so I just sort of tucked it away. But I did something called clinical pastoral education for a year. It's a residency you do in a hospital. And I spent that whole year thinking about my sexuality. I came out to my ex-husband that year. I said, it was 2010. And I said to him, I think I'm gay. He says, no, you're not. And I was like, oh, okay. Because I didn't really want to have to change my life. And so I kept telling therapists and other people that, I was looking for somebody to tell me my sexuality. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And the only person that can name my sexuality is me. And in fact, my ex and I were in marriage counseling with, by the way, a lesbian therapist, which was just happenstance, or was it, with a lesbian therapist. And she was a marriage therapist. And I mentioned being gay in marriage therapy, and she dismissed it. I said, maybe, I thought maybe I'm gay, if someone said that to me, I would pick up on that so quick.
Totally.
But she was older. She was, probably 70 when I was in my 40s. Her coming out was different. And also, and she just couldn't. And she also was like a lot of professionals, very vested in saving the marriage between my ex-husband and I.
Sure. I think that's so important. That's such an important message to put out there. Is there are all kinds of therapists out there. Not all of them got A's in school, and
actually, she was a really good therapist.
And I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, she was for that time of my life. And and when I came out for the third time, she apologized to me.
Right.
Yeah, she realized she had messed up. So 10 years it took me.
Right.
And so 2016, I was ordained as a minister in a very progressive denomination. I had left the evangelical denomination, and 3 weeks after I was ordained, I came out, because the morning after my ordination, I woke up and I knew the work that I was going to be doing was very difficult. My ex and I were, rocky in our marriage again. It was it was such a freaking roller coaster. It was a lot of times the flat part of the roller coaster for a long time, right?
Yes,
but, there was a lot of ups and downs, and so I had been working in hospice for 7 years, and basically I had witnessed a very difficult death of somebody. You can read about it in my book. I make this story very long if I tell it. And so I was talking about my therapist about my therapist, and that patient had said to me, "I feel like I've been waiting for something my entire life." So we sort of unpacked that, and my therapist said, "What have you been waiting for?" And honestly, I had that end of life experience where everything in your life just flashes before you.
Sure.
Like the waitress in the bar, standing in the parking lot, wondering if I was gay, all the attraction I had to women, wondering, telling my husband, all those things like that. And all of a sudden, I said it out loud. I said, I think I'm gay. And she said to me, and then I started crying. And she said, I said, this is going to open a Pandora's box. She said, it doesn't have to. And which she's right, it doesn't. But I would have denied myself. It doesn't have to. And I'm so glad she lied that night.
That was enough big information to reveal for one day,
I
right?
think what she was saying, which I didn't realize at the time, is that I was gay, but the choice about being queer, the choice about being gay is how you're going to live your life.
Yes.
And, she actually still was really invested in saving our marriage and told me that people have mixed orientation marriages all the time. And that was not going to work for me.
Yeah.
If some people do it, and that is okay, this is your life. You live your life the way you want to. But I wanted to be in an emotional, physical, spiritual, and intellectual relationship with a woman. And honestly, I'll end it here. Honestly, I joined, I had already joined the Facebook group that really changed my life. That was before I had talked. Well, no, it all happened in sequential order. But I joined this Facebook group where women are in the process of coming out later in life, like many of you have. And all of a sudden, like a whole new world opened to me. Yeah. And I was like, oh, these people are my people. And I had been searching for my people a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And so, this was like 6 months later, my therapist said to me, Emery, like, as you get further and further along in this journey, what are you looking for? And I said, well, I think I'm looking for a woman that's been out a really long time, because I know there's things I don't know about this community, and I want to be with someone who's my age and who's been there. I wanted to be with someone, within 10 years of my age range. Yeah. I said, well, I would like somebody that has no kids, because I have 4. Yep. And I had no interest in combining families, which is another thing later in life lesbians often have to navigate. For sure. And no interest in wanting to do that. And then I said I wanted somebody that had a healthy respect for religion, or, at least some understanding of it. And I swear to God, Barb, my now wife, who is sitting in the other room, messaged me 3 days later.
Yep. Like, there you go. You put it out there.
Yeah, I put it out there. And
ask and you shall receive. Is that how that goes?
Yeah. And then 5 years later, we got married.
There you go. There you go. But that's a really important thing that you touched on there, is that once you say it aloud, once that becomes articulated and real, and you put it out there in the universe, there's no putting it back.
Right.
You can't
Say
stuff
you're
it back in the box.
yeah.
And once it's out, you have to deal with it.
Mhm.
Like, it might be slow, it might be a process, but you can't just pretend it doesn't exist anymore because you've acknowledged it.
Right.
And this is where I think people feel so lost at this point in the journey.
Mhm.
Is they're like, I have no idea how to go forward.
Right.
And that's where we step in, right?
That's where we step in, because both Barb and I have walked this walk. Both Barb and I have professional experiences. I'm an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ. I have been trained as a chaplain, which basically I've been trained to listen. I did a residency and an internship, and I have been a later in life coach, Barb, for 6 years. So I know how this process works.
Yes,
And Barb, tell a little bit about your background, because you are like
sure.
this incredible organizer. Tell about your, what is that? The hugest big festival you organize.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm good at galvanizing people. I'm an ENFP, so I'm really good at being a cheerleader and getting people together and rallied towards a common goal. I'm also a humanist efficient with the Ontario Humanist Society. I perform life services. I'm on the board of directors there, and I really like very strong humanist values. And yeah, I've been a festival organizer for the last since I came out. I needed work that was really flexible, so I started working for myself so I could spend lots of time with my kids. So I've been a content strategist for a long time, doing all kinds of creative stuff. You know, everything from building websites to editing podcasts, writing blog posts, all that sort of thing. And now the latest leg on my journey is that I'm partway through finishing my master's in counseling psychology so that I'll be better able to serve our community, because I
Mhm.
see, as I've stepped into coaching and in the last year or so, um, this work is very meaningful to me. The community is very meaningful to me. It brings me such joy to be able to be for somebody else what I would have loved and needed during my own coming out journey. And you know, I'm really looking forward to being able to level up there and go from just being not just being the breakup coach and
Yes.
the dating coach is because that's my wheelhouse. That's what I speak to in our coaching community. But just to be able to round out my coaching abilities and to better serve the community for sure.
Mhm. So we would love to have you join us in our 5-day workshop. You can sign up for it at comingoutssupport.net. We will be starting tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time, but everything will be recorded, so you can watch it whenever you are able to. We are going to talk about our first day tomorrow will be, hey, I think I might not be straight. Our
Mm-hmm.
second day will focus on catalysts in lesbian relationships. Now, let me just say, each one of these days could be, 7 days, but we are
Totally.
just a smattering of some of the things you may need to know.
Mm-hmm.
The third day is about divorce, because a lot of us end up going through a divorce. The fourth day is about grief.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people don't understand why they feel so crazy. It's because you're grieving, because there's a lot of loss that goes in with coming out later in life.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to end on a sad note. The
No.
fifth day, we're going to talk about joy and finding community, and maybe we'll convince Barb to talk a little bit about going on dating apps and how you do that.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but we only have an hour. We'll be doing it in Zoom. But the very special thing that we're also offering is on Thursday evening at, I believe, 7 p.m. Central Time. I might be wrong with that, but it is on Thursday evening. We are going to offer a Q&A to come on into Zoom and ask Barb and I any of the questions you may have about this coming out journey.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope you join us. You can sign up again at comingoutssupport.net. And Barb, any last words?
Just that I'm just going to go over to our 5-day free education series, things you've got to know. You've got to know. I know, like you said, we're just touching on things.
Yeah.
But these are the things that rise to the surface. Advice for those of you who are coming out later in life, January 8th to 12th, 1 p.m. CST. And I really hope you'll join us and see us there, because we have so much to share and we want to hear your stories.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
we want to know where you're at and how you're doing. And so
and this is the thing, is that it's completely confidential, and you will also have the ability to meet some other women who are going through this. So we hope you join us, and we'll see you tomorrow, Monday, January 8th at 1 p.m. Central Time. Bye-bye.
See you then.